This episode of Derek and Matt Love Comics recorded September 2nd, 2018. You can find Derek and Matt Love Comics on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and TuneIn. Send us email at derekandmattlovecomics@gmail.com. That's all one word. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram at Derek and Matt. And you can even listen to the show or watch videos when we get around to making some on YouTube on the Derek and Matt Love Comics channel. Enjoy the show. When innocent people are in need, there are two heroes you can always count on to come to their aid with a mildly entertaining podcast about comic books and sci-fi movies. Those heroes, if I do say so myself, are Derek and Matt. I am your host, Federale Mateo Enrico Mendoza, and with me as always is my compatriot, Royal Canadian Mountie, who always gets his man, Derek D. Derrickson. How's it going, Derek?
I'm just jazzed about being on the show, man.
As well you should, because, again, if I do say so myself, pretty good show. What's going on this week?
Oh my goodness. Well, not too much. Do we want to discuss the stuff we did together?
Do yours. I'll do mine, and then we'll double up.
All right.
Phrasing.
I don't know if anyone remembers, but a few months ago I watched a 6-film Rock Hudson DVD set that my dad gave me whenever he had gone on his annual golf trip.
Okay.
And I ended up watching that back in, I think it was March or April. Well, I actually had another Rock Hudson collection. This one is the Rock Hudson Screen Legends collection. I think it was put out by Universal. It's a 5-film set. I got that about 2 years ago. The other day I decided, it's been sitting on my unwatched pile. I might as well get through it. Thing is that 2 of the films in the 5-film set are actually duplicated on the other set that my dad gave me.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there are 2 of possibly the only 2 films on that set that I didn't like.
That's not good luck.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, there's allegedly they're comedies. What I ended up doing was one night a few days ago, I ended up putting them on as background noise. Although I say that, but I basically had the TV on mute the entire time, just to say I watched the episodes. But then I ended up watching a 3rd film in the set, which I was actually pleasantly surprised by. It was a 1953 adventure film with Rock Hudson and Piper Laurie called The Golden Blade. Okay, try to imagine this. It's an adventure film that takes place in the 8th century, in which Rock Hudson plays an Arab devout Muslim who wants to avenge the murder of his father by bandits, and goes to Baghdad and gets caught up in political intrigue where the villain, the man who slaughtered his village and killed his father, is high up in the guards for the royal family and is the son of the vizier.
Okay.
And the vizier is named Jafar.
Of course he is.
And he's evil.
Well,
and he has an evil goatee.
Well, how can you tell he's evil if he doesn't have a goatee?
Okay, so along with all this, Rock Hudson ends up befriending a Greek man who is a peddler, has a little shop, sells clothes and stuff like that, and sells Rock a sword that ends up turning out to be magical. It can cut through iron, cut through anything, as long as Rock is the one that holds it. Doesn't work for anyone else. And Piper Laurie is the princess of I'm trying to think of the title, Caliph? Caliph?
Yeah, a Caliph.
The Caliph. She's the daughter of the Caliph. And I was actually surprised at how entertaining the film was. It's like, I don't know, like 82 minutes, so it's fast paced. It was actually really funny. Piper Laurie is adorable in the movie and gets a lot of comedy in it, which I was surprised. I always thought of her as a dramatic actress. I never thought of her as a comedian, but she was great in it. The only thing I thought was really weird, other than the idea that Rock Hudson and Piper Laurie were both playing Arabs, and Piper Laurie has the flaming orange hair, is that the man who was playing the Caliph, her father, had dark hair and actually didn't. So, I'm sorry. As I'm talking, my computer's acting up at the.
I see that on the run sheet.
It's doing the thing it did whenever the water was spilt on it a few months back, and it kept just randomly typing things without me actually physically doing anything.
Well, that's not good.
So, yeah, it keeps distracting from my train of thought. Anyways, Piper, okay, as I said, Piper Laurie has this flaming orange hair, and the weird thing about the casting is that the man who plays her father has a dark gray beard, and the guy who plays the villain guard, I guess you would call him the Dragon, because he's the second villain, is the son of as I said, the son of the Vizier. The Vizier, anyways, the son has dark beard, more like the guy playing the Caliph, and the actor playing the Vizier has the exact same bright orange goatee and hair. So I just thought, I spent the movie watching going, he should be playing her dad. But yeah, no,
I could see that.
Yeah, it's just something that was just a little odd, I thought. But, it was a fun, entertaining movie. I enjoyed it a lot, a heck of a lot more than the other two movies. Other than that, I found out a couple of hours before we started recording, I was taking a glance at the my on-demand service on my cable. Yeah. And I found out that they finally added 2 new episodes on the WWE network for on-demand that I receive, and one of them was 2 new episodes of Something Else to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, and one of them was the CM Punk episode, so I actually watched that just a couple of hours ago. It was interesting. I don't know if I'm assuming you've seen the episode.
Oh yeah, I've absolutely seen that one. I don't want to say there wasn't a lot of new information, but he's mentioned Punk a few times on the show on the podcast in the past, and some of the major points of this episode came up then. But it was nice having it all together and going through on a from sort of timeline of Punk's career while Bruce was there. Also, I find it funny that you spelled his name with a T. If you listen to the show, you know that don't put a T in his name, put one on your back. So they're a Conrad commercial for your T-shirts, because it is spelled Prichard.
I wasn't sure. But no, at the beginning of the episode, they actually prefaced saying that most of what they were going to be covering, they had previously discussed on the podcast.
Yeah, which they haven't done a Punk episode on the podcast, but they've done a couple of like Q&A episodes of the podcast where Punk stuff has come up.
I'm assuming because of that, if they've covered everything in segments previously on the podcast, they wouldn't really necessarily have to do a full episode devoted to it. But no, it was interesting. I learned a few things. I was kind of surprised, though, that they barely mentioned his first run on TNA. It got mentioned as almost an afterthought later, and that's where I originally knew him from.
Yeah, but they don't usually talk about TNA. They don't. Okay, actually,
well, they were talking about his second run on TNA.
Let me be more specific. They don't usually talk about stuff that Bruce wasn't there for.
Right.
So Bruce wasn't in TNA when he was there for the first time, or the second time for that matter. So it only gets briefly mentioned.
Well, but the thing is, they were talking about stuff that Punk had done before that Bruce wasn't there for. Like when he was in Punk was in Ring of Honor and doing the indies and other stuff.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like they just did that because they already had that footage from when they did the Punk Blu-ray, so they had access to that footage and they could use it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because they were basically following the timeline, and they skipped over his first run on TNA, which was it wasn't a short run. He was there for like what, a year, 2 years?
When he was with Raven?
Yeah, when he was part of the the Flock.
It wasn't actually called the Flock in TNA, but I don't remember what it was called.
I can't remember. It was
but it was him and Julio De Niro and Alexis Lurie with Raven, and yeah, I'd say it's a good solid year if I remember correctly.
That is where I originally heard of Mickie James and CM Punk.
Oh yeah, same here.
That was when I was really watching TNA a lot. But
yeah, same here. And then I went to that Ring of Honor show, and I met them shortly. Well, it was right before Mickie James went to WWE that I met them. So they had already kind of finished up with TNA. So I think that was like 2002 or 3. So
something like that. No, I'm just saying I was just surprised because that wasn't mentioned at all until later. It just, one of them makes an offhand remark about the first time he was in TNA, but then they move on to something else, and I was just kind of surprised by that. That's all.
No, I understand.
No, but it was interesting. I get what your point is, that they don't really talk about stuff where Bruce wasn't present because they kept everything after Bruce left WWE kind of to a minimum and just gave his opinion as a viewer.
Right.
But even still, you're still getting an educated opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But no, I like this show. I find it interesting. Although
I love the podcast. I listen to it. It's one of the highlights of my week, and I listen. If you can't tell by us doing a podcast, which you might be able to, you might not. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, you do.
But yeah, that one's probably the highlight of my week. It might be the thing I look forward to the most listening to each week.
You know what? It just dawned on me that I should start actually subscribing to Something to Wrestle With on iTunes.
Yeah, you have that capability.
I just realized that. But yeah, those are the two major things I've done this past week. Not really much else to go into. What about you?
So I haven't had time to do squat. Also, it was a weird fifth week of the month, so there wasn't a lot of big comic releases, although I've still got plenty from last week that I haven't read. But I consumed most of my time this week with Fire Pro Wrestling World, the latest Fire Pro Wrestling game to be released, the first one since 2006's Fire Pro R, so it's been a while. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, it is a Japanese series of wrestling games originally by Human, then by Spike, and now by Spike Churnsoft is done the latest game. And they are sort of pixel 2D, kind of like emulating not so much an SNES look, because there was a version on the SNES and the game has gotten better looking since then, but it sort of that, like, it the overall look sort of peaked at the Saturn Dreamcast level of, high-res 2D graphics.
Sorry to interrupt, but what was the name of the new company?
Spike Churnsoft. So Spike got bought by this new company, so it's both names are in the title.
It sounds like a 1980s soap opera character or a 1980s action movie character.
It could be both.
Could be.
So the game is notorious for having tons of crazy moves, being entirely timing based, requiring a high level of timing skill to play. You actually get punished for button mashing, and for having a ridiculous amount of customization as far as being able to make your own wrestlers. In the past, what they've done is they have included up to like 400 wrestlers that were based on real wrestlers, but given false names. And then there's a mode in the game that lets you go and change the names of every default wrestler if you want to do that. So they used to do it that way. This most recent release, they only included a handful of actually fictitious wrestlers, not based on anybody. But then they got the license to team with New Japan Pro Wrestling, so they also included a bunch of wrestlers from New Japan. It's kind of a slight disappointment not having the huge roster of 400 people like they have in the past. However, you can make anybody. You literally can make anybody. And this being the first one on a system that is connected to the internet with a big, network type thing, you literally can go on and find any character that anyone else has made and just download them in. So like my first day, I downloaded most of the Raw roster, actually most of the WWE roster. Right? Cena, Undertaker, Austin, Rock, Hogan, all of the Shield, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Asuka, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Finn Balor, AJ Styles. I just downloaded them in seconds and they're there.
Have you gotten Jericho?
I have not seen a Jericho that I like yet, but the nice thing is I can download multiples to see which ones I like and then get rid of the ones I don't like.
That's true.
Also, perfect representation of the Raw ring. So I've got, the arena set up right, and I saw where people were already doing the all-in rings, and, because it's a paint program essentially in the game, so you can design the rings however you want. I also downloaded a couple of WWE referees so that I have that for when I'm playing with the WWE guys. Just a crazy deep gameplay and a crazy level of customization. Right now I'm mainly enjoying playing the New Japan guys, especially, I've played Okada a lot, although I want to say that Kota Ibushi is probably the most fun to play in the game. Kenny Omega's also pretty fun, and those are the ones I'm playing the most, although I surprisingly played a lot with Taka Michinoku and some of the Guerrillas of Destiny, but played a couple matches with them because they're kind of ridiculously fun. I love this game series. I think Fire Pro D on the Dreamcast is still my favorite. Like I said, you can make anybody, but Fire Pro D had just the perfect roster already built in. It came out in 2001, so it was right at the end of the Attitude Era, and it had a bunch of American guys that have not been in other versions of Fire Pro. So I'm looking at the roster now, and it had all the guys you would expect, like Austin, Undertaker, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Mankind. But it also had Rikishi, who I don't think has been in any of the other games. Well, he might have been in Fire Pro R, because he was a free agent at the time. I think this was the first game to have Kurt Angle with hair. It had the Outlaws, which have not been in any other game.
Don't you mean Kurt Angle without hair?
No, it was the first time Kurt Angle was in the game, so he was actually with hair.
Oh, okay.
It was pre him shaving his head. It has
the previous version of the game. Okay.
Right. It has Taz, who I think was the only time he ever appeared in one of the games. Dean Malenko, I think, was the only time he appeared in one of the games. And then you've also got Sid Vicious in the WCW side was the only time he appeared in one of the games. And that's all on top of New Japan. You have everybody good in New Japan history at that point ever, like Antonio Inoki, Riki Choshu, Tatsumi Fujinami, Masahiro Chono, Kaiji Muto, the Great Muta. Yes, they have two different characters in there for him. Kensuke Sasaki, Manabu Nakanishi, Yuji Nagata, Hiroshi Tenzan, Satoshi Kojima. It's just a laundry list of great fighters from New Japan's history. And all on top of that, Super J. If you don't know who Super J is, he was the NWO Sting, who, after being the NWO Sting in NWO Japan, became more popular in Japan than the real Sting. And he stuck around New Japan for a while, and eventually, when the NWO went away, he stopped being NWO Sting and created a new character called Super J and stayed there for a while under that character. Also, great guys like Tiger Mask, Black Tiger, Tenaru, Giant Baba, Misawa, of course Vader, because anybody who's played any of the older Fire Pro games knows that Vader's probably the most fun to play in the game because he's just a monster. People, they refer to him as the critical machine because there's a thing in Fire Pro where you can do your finisher, or some guys have just a move type that will cause a critical, which is essentially either a knockout if it's a throw or a strike, or a limb break if it's a submission. And Vader has where he has the chance to critical with any power move, and he's nothing but power moves. And I've watched him in matches where it's him against three other guys, and he's gotten criticals on all three of them. It's just fun to watch Vader tear through people. But yeah, the new game stacks up. It's really fun. There's a couple of additions that I really like. They made a dedicated pin button because before the pins were assigned to one of your 2 attack to the ground, to a grounded opponent buttons. So now you have 2 attacks to a grounded opponent plus a pin button on top of that. And there's a strike battle thing now where sometimes it used to have before where you'd tie up, and if you both put your timing in at the same time for your button press, you'd go into the test of strength, and you'd have to like wiggle the control stick or the control pad to see who won the test of strength. It still does that, but if you do it with a strike move now, it goes into a strike battle where the guys just stand there and they start trading blows back and forth. And usually what happens is whoever wins will stop the strike battle, do a taunt, and then do a really big strike to knock the other guy out. Sometimes you'll just go straight into the really big strike and lay the guy out. And then sometimes you'll go to the really big strike, lay the guy out, and as you're like standing there having knocked the other guy down, you'll kind of go into a taunt, and the other guy will just pop back to his feet and lay you out. So I haven't quite figured out if there's a timing to get which result to happen, but it's fun watching, like, what's going to happen? Who's going to, even when you knock the guy down, he might just get back up and knock you back down. So that's basically it. That's all I've done this week is play Fire Pro. So besides what we've done together, which, go ahead.
Oh, my goodness. Well, okay, the first thing that's up is, I think it was Tuesday, you decided that you were going to get, or was it actually last Sunday after we recorded?
I think it was Sunday after we recorded.
You decided to get a jump start on watching your Halloween horror movies.
Which we discussed last year. I usually start on September 1st.
And we ended up watching, this was the only one that you've actually watched this past week.
Yes. We watched it on the 26th, so whatever day that works out to.
I'd look it up, but actually, I'm going to look it up right now.
And that was last Sunday after we recorded.
Alrighty. Okay, and the movie was An American Werewolf in London. And this is the 3rd or 4th time I've watched it in last calendar year.
It's a good movie. I think I seriously like it better every time. Now, we've discussed this in the past, that you are a longtime fan of this movie, whereas I only saw it for the first time like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've been seeing this movie off and on since I was like, I think 13 the first time. It was just in the past year that I realized, okay, I've always known I loved the movie, but it was just in the past year, I believe it was after I watched it in January, which was when I finally upgraded and got it on Blu-ray, that I realized that this is actually one of my top 10 favorite movies. Because, I mean, seriously, I love the heck out of this film. I every time I watch it, I'm constantly laughing. I'm just always entertained by it.
I feel like you say top 10 favorite film so much at this point that it's lost all meaning.
Yeah, but we're usually talking about the same movies.
I feel like we're constantly adding new movies to your top 10, so I'm wondering what drops out of your top 10.
Yeah. A couple have dropped out of my top 20. But no, my top 10's mostly consistent. Number 1 is Jaws. Number 2 is Superman. Number 3 is Ghostbusters. Number 4 is Singing in the Rain. Number 5 is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Number 6 is Poltergeist, the original, not the remake. Number 7 is Notting Hill. Number 8 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Number 9 is now An American Werewolf in London. And number 10 is Airplane. This is because I re-ranked An American Werewolf last week after we watched it, and it did finally edge the original Murder on the Orient Express, out of my top 10. So that's now number 11. Number 12 is Big Trouble in Little China, which we discussed 2 weeks ago. So that one's just outside my top 10. The 1950s Alistair Sim Christmas Carol, then Die Hard, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Incredibles, The Princess Bride, The Wizard of Oz, The Shape of Water, and Young Frankenstein. Certain movie that we're going to be discussing in a few minutes, or I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, is just outside my top 20 now, although it used to consistently be in the top 20. But who knows, maybe I'm going to re-rank it and it's going to get back.
So American Werewolf in London is 107 on my flick chart, which is currently kind of out of date, but because I've only got about 250 movies on the chart currently.
Oh,
but
yeah, you have to start adding a lot more stuff. Well, this is what happens whenever you clear your list.
I know, but I have issues.
Oh, we all do. And that was what we were originally going to call this show.
That was one of the suggestions, yes.
But someone already took it.
Yeah, I remember that day that you suggested we call it what culture. And I said there's literally a whole network called What Culture. And I think your response was, well, I don't know.
I didn't. I know now. You have to learn about these things somehow.
It's such a Derek D. Derrickson thing to say. Okay, yeah, so we watched American Werewolf in London. Always great. I really liked the movie.
As a courtesy this time, I tried to avoid saying something I always say every time we watch the movie, and I don't think I said it once this time.
So this is what Derek does, is like every time we watch the film, he's like, ooh, it has Jenny Agutter. I like her. So I made the joke of, hey, every time Derek says, ooh, I like Jenny Agutter, take a shot, and by the end of the movie, you'll be dead. And and Derek can't take that as a joke, so he literally doesn't say it the whole movie because he thinks he's going to bother me if he does.
Well, it's not that I thought it was going to bother you. I just wanted to prove that I could go without saying.
Okay, well then that you did do, sir.
I really do like Jenny Agutter.
I know you do. Also, if Logan's Run comes up, he will say it then too.
I saw that movie around the same age. Can't help it.
I'm very close to, because I was so happy I found the Marcel's version of Blue Moon that plays over the credits.
Oh yeah?
I found it on Amazon Music. So I did some music research and I found all 3 versions of Blue Moon that plays throughout the movie. I already have Bad Moon Rising and Moondance, so I'm seriously thinking about downloading those 3 Blue Moons and making a American Werewolf in London playlist for Halloween.
Just in case anyone is wondering, while we were watching the movie, or immediately afterwards, you were wondering whether or not there was actually a soundtrack with all the different recordings of Blue Moon on it. And sadly, there is not.
No, but there is a vinyl soundtrack by Mecco for the movie, which I thought was just weird.
Yeah, but that's been out of print for like...
yeah, but I mean...
35 years?
It was an official thing. It wasn't like... When I first saw it, I was like, well, that's weird. It must be just something they just did. Nope, actual soundtrack to the movie. It's got to be the score, right?
I have no idea.
After that, Derek spent some coin and picked up Deadpool 2, so we watched that. Now, we specifically only watched... And someone is shooting outside my house.
I was wondering what that was.
I thought
it was someone, pardon my language, I thought it was someone humping your dryer.
I was going to say it was a Remington shotgun, but it's firing too fast. I live in the country.
Am I still hearing it?
Yes, because he's still shooting. That is really close.
That is really loud.
Yeah. Let's take a break. I'm going to go see what's going on.
Okay.
I don't know. I have hillbilly neighbors. I can't tell what direction it was coming from. It stopped.
I thought maybe the zombie apocalypse had started.
No, I'm not going to say this happens every week, but you'd be surprised at how often this happens. It's just never happened while we were recording before.
Thanks for an exciting episode of Derek and Matt Love Comics.
The thing is, it's like completely pitch black out, so like if they're target... Oh, there he goes again.
Everyone stay down.
7. If they were, like target shooting or something, I don't know where they'd be doing it at, because nobody has any big spotlights or anything in their yards. Everything's pitch black out.
What if they're chasing a bear, or...
There's no bears in Northwest Indiana.
I don't know. I've never been there.
There's deer. There's the occasional, well, pretty frequently there's coyotes, and then there's the occasional wolf or fox. But,
we do occasionally get bear around where I live.
Well, yeah, you live in Canada. There's bears everywhere. I assume when you go down to the grocery store, there's like bears hanging out front.
Sometimes they're picking up guys.
So let's see if we can move on to Deadpool 2 without any more gunfire.
Yeah. Okay. Just to give a little background for this, you picked up Deadpool 2 on Tuesday, and we were on Skype talking while.
Well, it was the previous Tuesday, because we talked about it last week.
Oh my goodness! For some reason, I thought it was just last week. Okay. Well, fine. As we said last week, you had picked it up the previous Tuesday, and you watched it while we were on Skype, so I got to hear it, and it sounded actually amusing to me. So when I was out on this past Thursday for my big end of the month grocery and apartment and blah 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 restock outing, I decided, what the heck with it, I'm going to take a gamble, I'm going to buy the movie. So I picked it up on Blu-ray. I also figured with Disney buying Fox, that meant that it's going to be highly unlikely that this movie drops down in price if Disney's now going to own it.
That's a fair thought, although I don't think the first one's dropped down in price anyway, so
I figured, what the heck, take the gamble. Actually, the first one, the only reason I bought it was because I got it for $10 at Walmart.
Oh, really? I don't think I've ever seen it that cheap around here. I think I still see it, like, on Blu-ray, I still probably see it, like, between 15 and 20, probably right around the 18 mark.
Yeah, I can't remember. No, I don't think it was one of the sales. I think for a while, they were actually stocking it on the regular shelf at $10. Anyways, I picked up Deadpool 2, and again, I think I mentioned it before, I did not like the first film. And so I picked this one up on Thursday, and you and I watched it Thursday night over Skype, and lo and behold, I really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like it better. I just like it better than the first movie. It has some of the,
better than the first movie.
It has some of the problems that I had with the first movie, but not to the same degree. And there's so much more where he is what I always say Deadpool should be, and that's like Bugs Bunny, like, to the nth degree.
Yeah, he's a Looney Tunes character.
So yeah, I really liked this movie, and we should say that we watched the regular cut because Derek had not seen any cut of the movie, and we plan on either watching the Super Duper cut or Derek watching the Super Duper cut on his own later. He wanted to have something to compare he wanted to be able to compare the two.
Right.
Now having watched the original cut after seeing the Super Duper cut last week, I think I'm firmly in the camp of the Super Duper cut was better. Which is funny because when I first watched it, I was like, there's not really too much different here, and it wasn't really worth it. But seeing them so close to each other back to back, I actually prefer a lot of the jokes, prefer the longer action sequences that were different in the Super Duper cut.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the Super Duper cut. The 2 points I wanted to make about the movie. I think a large reason that I prefer this movie is that the character of Vanessa is really not in very much, and she was a character that I had a major problem with in the first film. Quite frankly, I just did not like her at all.
I don't like her either.
I couldn't stand the character, which is funny because I like Morena Baccarin, who plays the character.
I love her, but I don't like this character.
She's a great actress, but the character is just irritating. It's like they're trying too hard with the writing for the character, and it just comes off phony to me. And like they're trying to make a female version of Deadpool, only he's silly and she's cool. She's the real badass. And I just find the character incredibly off-putting.
Like, I don't like in this one when she says, "Kiss me like you miss me, Red." It sounds like such a dumb line.
Really? But no, yeah, that's part of the problem, is that most of her lines in the two movies, they sound really artificial. They don't sound natural.
Almost everything she says seems like they wanted it to be a catchphrase, and it just didn't take.
Yeah, the character does not work for me on any level in any way. And the exact opposite of that in this movie is Domino, who I absolutely love, to the point where I think Domino might be my favorite thing in this film.
I have liked Domino better every time I've seen the film now.
But she is just a delight. She's funny. Everything they do with the character. The character works because she's not trying to compete with the one-liners in that. the
No,
way that
if anything, she's bothered by them.
right. But the thing is, the other thing I like about the character is just constantly laid back and easygoing. She's just extremely good natured. I'm assuming part of that is because she literally lucks through life.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea of her, like, just like when they're in the when the convoy truck is getting blown apart and the Juggernaut gets loose and Deadpool gets thrown and Cable gets thrown and she just gets thrown and lands on the balloon and she just like casually lands and gets up and walks away because everything works out for her.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, I just love everything about the character in this film. She's funny. She is charming. She looks great and badass, legitimately badass. Zazie Beetz she's fantastic in the role. Plus, I love her hair. Okay. Can we just talk just briefly about the controversy with the casting and the depiction of the character?
Sure.
Okay. There still are people, because when I was posting, I was looking for like pictures and stuff like that. Well, in my post for Facebook, in some of the research I was doing for the movie and that, I'm still seeing people complain about them casting a actress who's mixed race, predominantly black, and I don't really have a problem whenever it's a character that is a supporting character.
Well, I don't have a problem when it's, frankly, a character whose race isn't among its
Right. The only time
deciding factors, I suppose, is
right.
the word I'm looking for.
No, I get that. The only time I have a bit of a problem with that is whenever the character's race being changed would dramatically change the origin and the background of the character to an incredible degree. Like, if James Bond was recast with a black actor, that would make for an incredibly different. Everything about the character's background would have to be radically altered. If Superman was recast with a black actor, it would be an incredibly different origin film because of the experience of growing up as someone who's black in Middle America. It would be incredibly different than an alien that passes as a white man growing up in the middle of Middle America.
Right.
It would be a vastly different experience. Plus the idea of James Bond being a white secret agent that can blend in and just fit anywhere and no one questions whenever he goes anywhere around the world and going into like these places. There are places where a black man as a secret agent is going to have more trouble, right or wrong. So those are cases where you start getting a little iffy. Like if you were doing a remake of Shaft and you cast a white actor, that's going to dramatically change Shaft.
And I mean, not that I'm trying to cause a controversy or anything here, but like when some people were upset by Idris Elba being Balder, no, I'm sorry, Heimdall.
Heimdall, yes.
In the Thor movies, and I remember saying, well, like it doesn't bother me because the Marvel's Asgardians are essentially an alien race,
right?
But if they were actually the Nordic gods, I kind of get why it would bother you. Like, it doesn't bother me, but at the same time, like, you're not going to cast Chris Hemsworth as, like, Shaka Zulu or something. So, you know,
the thing is,
certain characters are tied to their race from some degree to another, you know.
Right. But the thing with Idris Elba as Halder, or Heimdall, him as Heimdall did not bother me because it's basically the same thing as with Perry White being played by Lawrence Fishburne or Zazie Beetz playing Domino, is that they're the supporting characters and their background is not really dealt with.
Right.
So it's easier to, change the supporting characters around the main characters because it's not going to dramatically alter the main story. But I mean, you could have changed Thor to be a actor with a different ethnicity. It wouldn't necessarily have changed it because the main story is still going to be the same for Thor, which is a god from another alien race comes to Earth and has to adapt to being mortal. But the thing is, if you're doing a character like Superman or James Bond, it is going to change the circumstances of their reality. because Superman is a guy who grew up as just an average kid in Kansas, and no one suspects us as a superhero. And with James Bond, again, it's going to be a secret agent going around the world and that, and whether or not he can blend in and sneak into places and get be less not someone who's not going to necessarily be drawing attention.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with Domino in this, I didn't have a problem with it because, frankly, she's not the focal character, so that you can play a little more fast and loose with the supporting characters.
Also, I'm not quite sure in the comics what Domino is supposed to be, because she has, like, chalk white skin. I think she's supposed to be Caucasian. She definitely has Caucasian features. But, like, I don't know. This girl looks like Domino in the movie. Acts like Domino in the movie. It worked.
Yeah, it worked for me. I thought it was great. Deadpool 2. I enjoyed it. I want to watch the super duper cut.
Yeah, very much so. And the last thing we did this week was last night we watched, and by watched I should say that I probably missed about 25% of the pre-show, and I've missed the majority of the first 3 matches, but we watched All In, the independent super show put on by Cody and the Young Bucks. What'd you think, Derek?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to remember exactly what I said, and I believe what I said last night was that it was quite possibly the most entertaining pay-per-view I've watched in quite some time. I just thought it was altogether just fun, basically almost top to bottom.
It
was just really entertaining.
It was really good. Again, I know you guys were talking pretty high about the 4-way, the women's 4-way, and I only saw the last little bit of that match because that's where I got in. So I want to go back and watch that for sure.
Well, to be honest, I was mainly focusing on Tessa Blanchard because she just looked incredible.
You know what? I really like Tessa Blanchard, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
To be honest, I kind of didn't really pay attention to the other 3 because I just keep getting more and more impressed with Tessa Blanchard because she just looks like such a monster when she's out there.
Yeah, I liked her since the first Mae Young, since we saw her in the first Mae Young.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that she's going to end up becoming a major star in the future, whether she stays in the Indies or ends up in WWE.
Well, she's in TNA, so she's not really in the Indies.
I wasn't sure she was there anymore.
Yeah, she's the champion there.
I don't know. I don't follow TNA.
We said this last night. We mentioned this last night.
Well, excuse me. I don't catch everything.
You don't pay attention.
I'm hearing impaired, you jerk.
Yes, you are hearing impaired, and you use your hearing impairment as an excuse for not paying attention.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Can you repeat that?
Exactly. Okay, so like the only real problem with the show was the fact that when the main event started, we all realized that they had only 15 minutes left, and it's actual pay-per-view, so they actually had to end on time. And that last match really seemed like it was on fast forward. And it was already like a crazy 6-person lucha match, which is going to be a fast-paced anyway, but it was really fast-paced. But
yeah, you said it exactly. It was fast forward. Basically, people didn't really have... All the guys in the match, they really didn't have time to sell anything. It was just, everyone had to get the spots in.
Right, and then...
Boom, 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 boom.
The crazy thing about all that was that we realized what was going on, but then it got to the point where we said, how is that not the finish? Because like there was like 3 or 4 huge spots at the end where we were like, oh, that's got to be the end. Wait, they're out of time, and that's not the end?
Yeah, they were really coming down to the wire.
Because I really thought Ray was going to get the win at the one spot, and he didn't. But
yeah,
that was good. The Kenny Omega match was really good. If anything, and I like Pentagon quite a bit actually, but that match was hindered by Pentagon. Like, it was a really good match that could have been a great match, is the way I look at it, and I think it's because Kenny just didn't have a good enough opponent.
Well, how old is Pentagon?
They're probably about the same age.
Really?
Yeah, Pentagon's not super old or anything.
Well, Kenny's in his early 30s, right?
Junior.
Pentagon Jr. was in his 40s.
He's 33.
Really?
Kenny.
I thought he was slightly out of shape older guy.
Kenny Omega is 34. They are a year apart. Pentagon didn't get big until like 2-3 years ago. And by big, I mean popular.
This makes me even more sad about the match then, because I thought it was good when I thought that Pentagon Jr. was an older guy pushing 50.
No, not at all.
Who was kind of slightly out of shape. Finding out that he's only 33 actually makes me disappointed now. Wow. I did write down a bunch of thoughts on the pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I already mentioned the Tessa Blanchard thing. You missed the Battle Royal, right?
I saw bits and pieces of the Battle Royal.
I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by Jordynne Grace. I'd never heard of her before I saw the match. She actually looked... She was the lone female in the 15-man, or I should say 15-person Battle Royal on the pre-show. Man, she's a little powerhouse.
When she got Cage up, that was pretty impressive.
Oh, my sister actually came in the room and watched a bit of that match with me, and we were both impressed.
Because as we know, Cage is a machine.
So yeah, I ended up liking her quite a bit. I was surprised to find out she's only 22, so no telling where she's going to go with her career. For years I've been hearing about Moose, and I briefly saw a few episodes of Ring of Honor about 3 years ago, and I wasn't really impressed by Moose, and this was whenever I was hearing about him a lot. It's like a big, huge future star, and oh my goodness, WWE is thinking about getting him. And so I watching the Battle Royal, and all I could think is, yeah, I still don't get it.
See, I liked him in Ring of Honor. He's been in TNA for the last 3 years. I haven't really seen him. I thought he looked terrible last night. Like, I almost didn't recognize him.
He looked awful.
I almost didn't recognize him. When I saw that it was him, I'm like, oh my god, he lost all his muscle mass.
He had this one spot where it was him doing a single punch to each and every opponent as they charged at him one at a time. And the punches were so pulled, he was like, I don't know, like 3-5 inches away from hitting anyone as they flopped back. And it was just so poorly executed, and it was just punch after punch after punch. It made me sad. I was very disappointed in that. Other than that, moving on, Stephen Amell I thought did really well in his match against Christopher Daniels.
Right.
I thought it was very respectable. I was shocked when he did a couple of major, not just moves, but also took a couple of really big hits.
Yeah, he really put himself on the line in that match.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine the producers for Arrow watching it going, what the hell is he doing? No, it was surprisingly really good. The first few minutes of the match, I thought they were just going to do a kind of a safe match, and it looked like they were like going really easy. But then they started doing crazy stuff. The other thing about that match is Christopher Daniels is a guy that has been a favorite of mine for years because, as I mentioned before, I used to watch TNA back in the early days, and he was my favorite back then. But I haven't really seen much of him in the last few years, so I very much enjoyed getting to see him in a pay-per-view again last night. He still looked great, I thought. Other matches last night, I've finally gotten to the point where I now feel comfortable saying that Kenny Omega is one of my favorite pro wrestlers today. I'm now comfortable saying he's one of my favorites. I've been a little hesitant to say that because I kept thinking I didn't see enough of his matches. But at this point, I think I've seen enough at this point to make a qualified decision. And so, yeah, Kenny Omega is definitely one of my favorites. And I'm starting to really like Okada.
Yeah, I really like Okada. Okada's definitely... I think Okada's my favorite in New Japan right now.
The only thing holding me back from saying Okada's one of my favorites is that I think I've seen like 5 of his matches.
No, I get that. But I really like Okada. I thought it was interesting. Dan said something last night, our mutual friend Dan, about how people say that Kenny doesn't have a diverse moveset, and it's all his matches are just all the V trigger. No, he's got a huge moveset. I know I've knocked the V trigger in the past, but my complaint about the V trigger is not that the match is nothing but V triggers. It's that the V trigger looks like such a knockout shot that it should just be his be all end all finish instead of a move that he peppers in 5-6 times a match. That said, the way people sell it and the way it's used in the match, it's a move that you pepper in 5-6 times in a match. It's just that it looks so impressive to me that I think they should elevate it to the point where it's just the knockout shot.
It should be.
It should be, you know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other match, I'm going to say what I consider the match of the night was the Hangman Adam Page versus Joey Janela. I'm giving it to that match.
Easily the worst match I saw of the night. So
I'm giving it. I'm not saying it was a good match. I'm not saying
you just said it was match of the night. If you're gonna say it's match of the night, you have to say it's a good match.
I'm giving it match of the night because it was the most entertaining match. Because I was never bored or found my mind wandering at all during that match. It kept my interest the entire time just because they were both insane.
Okay, that's fine. I found the match very entertaining. I still think it was, of the matches I saw, the least entertaining match of the night. So
I can't help it. I don't think it was the best match. I don't think it was the best wrestling. It sure as heck was not. But it was the most entertaining.
So I'll address this, that I have heard interviews. I'd never actually seen Janela wrestle, but I kind of have heard about his style. I have heard interviews with Janela, and he comes off like just the worst piece of garbage. And like all he does is talk about how he's... And part of this might be a work, and part of it might just be who he is. But he seems like all he does is talk about how he's the best professional wrestler ever. And... the one interview I heard, he focused a lot on the fact that he might have ended Zandig's career and was kind of laughing about the fact that Zandig was crippled. Now, we later found out that Zandig wrestled like 3 weeks after the match in question. However, he was still kind of bragging about ending the guy's career. And again, this was on a podcast interview, so how much of it is a work and how much of it is a shoot? But he really came off abrasive. So having finally seen him wrestle, so he has no physique. He seems like he has no coordination. He definitely has no talent or wrestling ability. However, what I did not count on having happened is the combination of all that somehow was funny and enjoyable, as opposed to being sad and pathetic.
No, and he takes a heck of a lot of punishment.
Yeah, and that's where he's made his name. He's made his name he's the guy, you know, that will put his body on the line,
right.
You know.
I'm wondering if he is the next Mick Foley.
Yeah, but see, Mick still had charisma and could do moves and had wrestling ability and psychology. This guy just seems like he's more of the Jeff Hardy. I'll just throw myself off something high. Actually, he's lower than Jeff Hardy. He's more of a what the heck? I just forgot his name. My brain shut down. One of the gangsters from ECW. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
People are screaming the answer into their iPhones right now.
I have no idea.
Oh my god, why is my... Okay, I am looking up something that I should absolutely recall immediately. New Jack!
Oh, New Jack!
Why I couldn't come up with New Jack, I don't know. Everybody send me email and make fun of me.
The weird thing is I was actually... When you were trying to figure out who, I kind of thought you might be meaning New Jack, but wasn't sure.
No, yeah, New Jack very much was like, no ability, no personality, but hey, he'll jump off a balcony and that gets a pop, so.
Also stab a guy?
Yes.
Was that New Jack?
Yes. Also cripple a 16-year-old kid in the ring is New Jack.
Yeah, Joey Janela might very well be the next New Jack. I'm not disputing that. All I'm saying is the match was really entertaining. I'm hoping that all the stuff that you talked about is just character work. Otherwise, he is. Really
well, I'd like to think that I've watched enough professional wrestling that I can tell when someone's doing character work and when someone's being legit. And I had a hard time getting through the one interview because he just came off so horribly. I was like, why do I want to keep listening to this guy?
The weird thing about that match, though, is I was shockingly impressed by the girl who I'm assuming is his manager.
Penelope Ford.
She was really good.
She was better than him.
She was. She was doing Trish Stratus moves in the ring, and she looked great. She looked like she has a future. Janela looks like he's going to kill himself or someone else.
I would like to point out that Derek said the funny thing about that match, and then he didn't mention all the giant penises.
Oh, we're actually going to discuss that.
No, I'm going to leave it at that.
People who didn't see it are going, what? That can't be right. No, it really happened.
I liked the NWA title match, but I thought the finish was a little like blah. It was anticlimactic, the finish.
Wait, which one's that? Oh gosh,
Cody and Aldis.
Yeah, okay. I was actually a little bit surprised by that match because it really didn't seem that big.
That's because Aldis isn't that good.
There was no like.
And truth be told, I love Kenny. Or I'm sorry, I love Cody, but Cody's not great in the ring. Cody's good in the ring. Cody's a lot like, quite frankly, Cody's a lot like his old man, where it's all in the charisma and the character, and not so much in the ring work. So you kind of have to, you know, where Dusty had his great battles is against like the Andersons and Flair and Race and guys who were really good in the ring, who could carry him. You know, because Dusty's and DiBiase, because Dusty's more of a brawler, and not that he's not a good worker, but the technical aspect of the match, you want the other guy to carry it, you know. And I don't think Aldis is the guy to do that.
No, my thing about that was just that it just really seemed like a sparring match for almost the entirety of it. There didn't seem to be any big show-stopping moves or anything.
Well, that was when Brandy got hurt, and then when Cody got busted open.
Yeah, but Cody getting busted open was like delayed.
It was. No, you're absolutely right.
Because we cut away for like 30 seconds, where I'm assuming Cody was blading, and so we have this like big delay before we actually get the payoff of the blood. Yeah, other than Brandy getting hurt, it just I don't know. It felt like a mid-card match.
I liked all the Jay Lethal stuff with Lanny Poffo and Black Machismo. I don't know. I think the match of the night for me was the Okada-Scarl match, although I will admit that I think it dragged a little bit in the middle. Not a lot, but I think the match was, wow, 26:05. Yeah, they could have took 5 minutes off that match easy.
Yeah, that
was the longest match of the night by 4 minutes. So...
Yeah, I'm going to give that the best match of the night. The most entertaining match of the night, I'm still giving the street fight.
Although, to me, the most entertaining moment of the night was when Jericho showed up.
Oh my God, yeah. I was shocked to find out afterwards that he, apparently, without even washing his face or anything like that, he immediately left the arena, got on a plane to fly to Kansas because he was scheduled to perform with his band in Kansas that night, and he did.
Yeah, I remember him talking on his...
shocking.
I remember him talking on his podcast about something where he was doing a gig in New York, and Vince needed him in a show like in Louisiana or something, and like the next day, or like later in the same night, and Jericho was like, "Yeah, I'll do it, but I'm not going to break my commitment of the show that I've got lined up." And basically, he finished his show, and Vince had like a Learjet waiting for him, and he got there immediately. So that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that guy does.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was a private jet that he took to go to Kansas.
It probably was, because if it wasn't a private jet, he would have had gone all from. Okay, this is me knowing Chicagoland area. He would have had to gone all the way from Hoffman Estates up to either Midway or O'Hare just to get on a plane to go back the other direction toward Kansas. So he probably took a private jet from a small airfield in the Hoffman Estates area.
It just makes me wonder whose jet.
Well, it makes me wonder, did the Bucks and Cody pay for that?
Right. But yeah, no, great pay-per-view. I really enjoyed it. I'm really hoping that they're going to put this on home video, like DVD, Blu-ray release. If so, I'm definitely gonna buy it.
Yeah, they'd be stupid not to, so let's hope they do.
And I hope they're gonna do another All-In next year.
Again, they'd be stupid not to. Now, it's kind of funny because this was accompanied by the StarCast wrestling convention, a wrestling podcast convention that went on for a few days before and after. It was basically Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Conrad Thompson, who does the Bruce Pritchard show, was the one running that convention, and he's been saying, like, for the last couple of weeks how he's never going to promote anything again because he's like, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm going to be there this weekend and everyone's going to be telling me about all the things that I did wrong, and I don't ever want to have to deal with this again. So from his standpoint, like, he's a first-time promoter and he's done with it. I can say that because I listened to a couple interviews with Cody and the Bucks where they were talking about, like, trying to be first-time promoters and actually calling buildings and lining things up and everything. And it makes you wonder, did they learn anything, and are they willing to go through all this again to promote another show?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's it for All In, and we're going to head, after a quick break, we will head to the news. And I didn't even look at how many news stories we have, so are we at a top 5 or no? We are.
We are at top 5. I was actually expecting you to proof them to see if you want to delete anything.
Yes, unfortunately, I never got a chance to do that today. Say your line.
Professional podcast.
Yes, because I was, I just never got around to it because I had other stuff going on today. As I mentioned last week, I'm going out of town later this week, and I'm trying to play catch up on getting stuff done before I go out of town.
Oh, well, I always say life takes priority.
Yeah, but I also, the time that I did have to spend on the podcast, I put toward planning stuff for future episodes and not just checking to see what the news was for this week, because I know most of this news, we can talk about it. I just didn't set the priority as, like, what was going to be the numbering of the news stories or whatnot. So the first news story is Alec Baldwin has joined the cast of Todd Phillips directed, Martin Scorsese produced a Joker origin film as Batman's father, Thomas Wayne, and then left the cast 2 days later due to scheduling issues. Man, I would have loved to have seen him play Thomas Wayne.
Oh, well, here's the thing. When they made the announcement that he was cast, and that was on the 27th, so that would be, what, Monday?
Mm-hmm.
They made the announcement on the Monday, and accompanied with it was a description that this would be kind of a reimagining of the character, where Thomas Wayne would not be a philanthropist. He would be a cheesy Donald Trump-style 1980s businessman. And that was the very first I'd ever heard of that. And then 2 days later, Baldwin drops out of the film, officially due to scheduling. But I started to wonder if it was because, did he maybe possibly not know that they wanted him to basically do his Trump character, and he ended up deciding to take a walk?
Now, see, I saw a little bit about this, actually on the entertainment portion of my local news, which by local, it means Chicago, so it's a big market. And they were kind of saying, like, he took it because he was looking for something he could do like the Trump thing, where it would be sort of a franchise piece that might be job security.
Okay.
So that weighed in on his decision, but then they didn't really get into why he left. So.
Okay, I can see that, but the thing is, I don't think this would have been. Everything about this film does not paint it as a franchise.
No, and that was my thought. It was, he found out it's not a franchise thing. But they didn't actually say that. Right,
this seems really like it's a one-off. The thing is, I know he can be incredibly abrasive, and there are a lot of people who don't like him, but I personally love Alec Baldwin. He's one of my favorite actors. I've been a fan of his since I was a kid. And I'm always up to seeing him in basically anything he does, and him playing Thomas Wayne as basically a Donald Trump stand-in. I would have liked to have seen that. The other thing that I didn't add it, but in the middle of all this, we also finally got some of the revelations of the characters that other cast members are playing in this movie, specifically Robert De Niro and his name just slipped out of my head. Is it Maron from Glow?
Mark Maron.
Mark Maron. And apparently, what their characters are is Robert De Niro is playing the host of a hugely successful late night talk show, and Mark Maron is playing the producer of the talk show. And in the movie, this is a talk show where the Joker, before he becomes the Joker, when he's a struggling stand-up comic, makes an appearance on that show and bombs. So that's what their characters are. That came out in the middle of all this with Alec Baldwin.
Man, I don't like Scorsese, and I don't like a lot of the actors Scorsese normally uses, and none of this sounds good to me.
I like
Alec Baldwin sounded like the best thing out of this to me. So
the thing about Scorsese is I like his stuff when it's not gangsters. I like branches out and does other things.
I've seen him do other stuff that I've liked, but by and large, I don't like him. I know we've talked about this before, but
yeah.
All right, moving on. Alan Tudyk has been cast as Mr. Nobody in the upcoming Doom Patrol series. Man, how many superhero franchises can Alan Tudyk get himself into?
All of them.
He's getting there.
If there's anyone that I wouldn't mind having in all the superhero franchises, it would be Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, it'd be great.
He's a delight.
Oh, he is. I really like him.
I managed to say that twice tonight. No, you know the funny thing is, okay, in looking up this, I was when I was writing out the news article, I was originally going to write because I'm the one who wrote all the news items as we're reading them on the run sheet, and I was going to mention Grant Morrison's Mr. Nobody. I had completely forgotten that Mr. Nobody actually predated Grant Morrison's run, that the character came from the 60s. Doom Patrol original run created by writer Arnold Drake.
Okay.
And I have the entire 60s Doom Patrol run in the Showcase Presents collections, and it's one of my favorite comic book runs. I literally have no memory of Mr. Nobody being in that run.
Really?
Seriously, the only thing I know the character for is being in Grant Morrison's run in the early 90s. I was legitimately surprised and shocked and confused when I found out that the character is from the 1960s. Although, given the character is Mr. Nobody, it seems kind of appropriate.
A little bit. This Doom Patrol series, now that we've talked about it 2 weeks in a row, seems like the only thing that's interesting me on this DC service. So
yeah, not enough to actually pay.
Oh no, not at all.
DC service.
Not even close.
God, no.
But it's finally got me going.
No, it seems that this is the show with all the interesting casting. This is the show where the cast are all people that I recognize, whereas most of the cast of Titans, I have no idea who they are. The only ones I'm familiar with in any way are the actors playing Hawk and Dove.
Right. Robin Wright will return as Amazon General Antiope. Antiope, I always get that wrong. Antiope. In Wonder Woman 1984, Wright reportedly filmed a flashback sequence in Spain this summer alongside Connie Nielsen as Queen Hippolyta. So everybody who died in the first movie will be back in this movie.
Basically. Well, this one's a little bit of a cheat because it's a flashback sequence.
Yeah, I mean, she was in Justice League, so...
She was supposed to be in Justice League.
Oh, that's right.
She was edited out.
She was edited out of Justice League, yes. You're correct.
I'm assuming she was probably going to be
in the big battle sequence.
Right. Set in the ancient times.
Because there's so many other people, like Ares is in that sequence, so...
Or rather, well, Ares is wearing David Thewlis's face.
Yes.
Which is weird.
The Dwayne Johnson Big Trouble in Little China film is now being described by producer Hiram Garcia as a continuation of the world created in the original film, not a remake, with Johnson not playing Jack Burton. I didn't think this was still on the table.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. It seemed like this might have started to, maybe not be happening, but they've been kind of talking about it a little more the last couple of months. This is good news. I'm happy because I was kind of down on the idea of them doing a flat-out remake with Johnson just playing Burton.
I actually think The Rock could pull it off really well, but I think it's completely unnecessary. So,
I would have been fine if they did a sequel with Johnson playing Burton, but Johnson playing Burton in a direct remake, I thought was just idiotic. But now they're saying it's not a remake and it's a continuation, and he's not actually playing Burton. He's going to play a different character. I'm okay with that. If anything, this actually sounds more in keeping with the Jumanji film that he did.
Yes.
Where it's a continuation. It's not just a remake. And actually, I think that might be the best option.
This has me more interested than a straight-up remake.
Oh, yeah. You could call this a soft reboot.
Right.
Because they're trying to reignite the franchise. Although, really, there never was a franchise.
No, there wasn't.
There was a movie that was really good, but it didn't do anything. But yeah, no, if they can make a franchise out of this now, fine. My point is they're doing it the way that I would prefer, so I'm happy.
Right. And finally, it would not be an episode of Derek and Matt if we didn't talk about James Gunn. James Gunn's firing may cause a delay or changes to Avengers 4. Dave Bautista has revealed that he has a couple of scheduled reshoot days coming up and has suggested that elements of Avengers 4 may be changed now that Guardians 3 is on indefinite hold.
Yeah, there's the suggestion that with Guardians 3 being on hold and now there being some minor talk about the possibility of that movie maybe not happening, that they might try wrapping up the Guardians in Avengers 4.
Which kind of makes sense, and at least I'd appreciate the closure, so.
Yeah. The thing is with Dave Bautista has really been, you talk about burning bridges, he has been really.
Yeah, he's been really outspoken.
And
I back him, but.
I completely 100% agree with him. He is not mincing any words. But it would not surprise me if Disney forces, as we discussed last week, with Disney now seemingly taking a much more firm, controlling hand over Marvel, which they've not done prior. It would not surprise me if they basically force the production of Avengers 4 to permanently kill off Drax in Avengers 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dave Bautista himself has even given the possibility that might happen, that they might just kill the character off, so that they're done with him.
It's crazy where this is going.
Yeah, God. The thing is, Disney did to themselves.
They did.
They had the opportunity to be level-headed, and they just overreacted, and they standing by it.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's nuts. This whole thing is just. I can't say that.
Right.
Cluster of unfortunate incidences.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good wording. So that's the news. As far as the greatest comic shop in the galaxy, Galactic Greg's, I'll just say, hey, here's something you might not know about Galactic Greg's. All of the DVDs and Blu-rays on the Cosmic Trading Post side are 50% off. That's not a weekly sale. That's not a special. That is currently the status quo. So if you're looking for something, we might have it. Also, CDs, 30 cents or buy 4 for $1. So that's two of the specials we have going on right now that are sort of permanent specials. Other than that, still time to get your Galactic Greg's t-shirts. And we're getting ready for the Halloween Fest and Walking Dead Day coming up in October. We got a big surprise coming up for that, and hope to see you around the store.
I suddenly wish I could teleport to Galactic Greg's and take a look at the CDs.
Yeah, there's still good stuff in there, so.
I bet.
On to the main topic of the week. As I said last week, just throwing it in there just because I wanted to throw something easy and fun in. We watched Galaxy Quest, and we're going to talk about it.
Yay!
So, quickly hitting the plot, courtesy of Wikipedia, as always.
Just be careful you don't accidentally read the plot for Three Amigos.
I'm actually open on the Seven Samurai page, so... The former cast of a cult television space adventure series, Galaxy Quest, spend most of their days attending fan conventions and promotional stunts. Though Jason Nesmith, the series' former lead star, thrives on the attention, the other cast members, Gwen DeMarco, Alexander Dane, Fred Kwan, and Tommy Weber, resent Nesmith's irresponsible and self-serving attitude. During a convention, Nesmith is approached by a group calling themselves the Thermians, led by Mathazar, who request his help. Believing this to be a scheduled fan event, he agrees to be picked up the next morning. Nesmith is unaware that the Thermians are really aliens, tentacled beings using human holographic disguises. Nesmith is hungover when he is picked up and falls asleep as they take him through space to an exact functional version of the NSEA Protector, the starship from the Galaxy Quest TV show. Still hazy, Nesmith proceeds to give orders as captain, directing them to strike on Ceres, a warlord that seeks to eliminate the Thermians. Only when Nesmith is transported back to Earth does he realize that the ship that he was on was real. Nesmith eagerly explains the events of the previous day to his cast members, but they consider it to be part of his drunken ramblings. When Laliar, another Thermian, appears and requests Nesmith's help further, he convinces the cast, including Guy Fleegman, who appeared as a red shirt character in an episode, to join him. Red shirt character being a Star Trek term, but it applies here. Once aboard the Protector, they are astonished by the ship and stumble with the controls, as the Thermians only built the ship to follow the show's specifications, but do not know how to operate them. When Ceres attacks again, they evade through a magnetic minefield and take heavy damage, disabling their power core. The humans take a shuttle to a nearby planet to recover a new power core, having to deal with its hostile native life forms. By the time they return, they find that Ceres has taken over the Protector. Ceres discovers that the Thermians, having no understanding of the concept of fiction, took Galaxy Quest as a documentary, and Nesmith is forced to explain they are actors to Mathazar. Ceres sets the self-destruct mechanism and leaves a sacrificial guard aboard while he returns to his ship. Nesmith and Dane use a tactic from the show to overpower their guards and free the others. While the cast and Thermian crew make repairs and familiarize themselves with the ship, Nesmith and DeMarco travel through the bowels of the ship to shut off the self-destruct sequence, aided over a misplaced Thermian communicator by superfan Brandon and his friends on Earth, with detailed knowledge of the show. With the ship repaired, Nesmith leads his cast and the Thermians to attack Ceres' ship with the magnetic mines, destroying it. The crew prepares to head home through a black hole and leave Mathazar in command, with Nesmith giving him confidence that the Thermians can run the ship. Suddenly, Ceres, who had teleported onto the Protector just before his ship was destroyed, appears on the bridge and attacks them. Nesmith activates the Omega-13, a plot device from the show that reverts time by 13 seconds, giving him opportunity to knock Ceres out when he first appears. However, the scuffle has caused the ship to travel too fast, too close to the Earth. Mathazar informs them that they must separate the ship or die. The cast says goodbye, the alien crew all heading to the second bridge, although Laliar, who has fallen in love with Kwan, goes with the cast. The command module is flung back to Earth, but the cast have no indicators where to land. Brandon and his friends set off fireworks near the convention center, where their convention is still ongoing, to guide them in. The module comes to a crash landing, breaking through the center's wall in an auditorium. As the crew exit the still smoking module, the gathered fans assume this to be part of the act. Ceres wakes up and comes out of the ship after the cast, attempting to fire on them, but Nesmith is able to vaporize him with a weapon. The fans cheer in excitement. Sometime later, a revival of Galaxy Quest has been produced. The theme song plays as the credits are shown. The same cast, but this time with the additions of Fleegman and Laliar. At the end of the credits, Mathazar can be heard saying, "Never give up, never surrender," Nesmith's character's signature line. We watched that. I've watched it many times.
I've lost track of how many times I've seen this.
I really have. When the movie came out, and it's what, 99, right? Yeah.
Yes.
When the movie came out in 99, I remember seeing the trailers and going, "Oh, I have to see this. This looks great." And I couldn't believe that it was Sigourney Weaver in this part, But one thing or another, I never got to see it in the theater. And it was one of those ones where, like, I bought it unseen on DVD because, first of all, it was like 2000 and it was the burgeoning DVD market where we basically were buying everything on DVD, whether we had the slightest bit of interest in it, because that was the thing people were doing back then, was just buying everything on DVD. I still kind of sort of mostly do that. A lot of people no longer do that. But, so yeah, I bought it right away, and then we just watched it. My brother and I just watched it repeatedly. Both of us, being fairly big Star Trek fans, just watched it repeatedly. And it's always one that comes up, among fans when having Star Trek discussions.
It was a film that, as with you, I saw all the trailers for it, and I really wanted to see it. When it came out on home video, I got my dad to rent it, and the family ended up watching it. The first time was on a rental, and all of us ended up loving the movie, and it became one that I really adored. And once I kept trying to find it on VHS, which was still a thing at the time.
Yeah, very much so.
But I could never find the movie. And then in 2001, that was whenever I started buying DVDs. And it took me a few years before I was finally able to get it. But by that point, I had seen the movie several more times on late night television. And also, for a few years there, we had TMN, which is the kind of Canadian version of HBO. TMN being short for the Movie Network. So I ended up seeing it quite often. And then finally I got it on DVD, and I've had the DVD for a good 10, 12 years, maybe more. I'm not 100% sure. And it was one that I used to rewatch that movie a lot. It was one of my go-to films that if I was feeling down or I was bored, I didn't know what else to watch. Oh, what the heck? I'll put Galaxy Quest on. So I've watched that movie a lot over the years. And then a few years ago, my sister picked it up for me for Christmas on Blu-ray, along with a couple of other films that she found for I don't know. I think she spent like $6-7 for the Blu-ray, something like that. And yeah, it's just been a favorite of mine for the longest time. As I said earlier tonight, it's only just recently been knocked out of my top 20 all-time favorite films, but really if I was to re-rate it, it'd probably end up back in my top 20.
Yeah, I bought it on Blu-ray when Alan Rickman passed away. I thought that was a good time, because I was going to watch it. I said, it's a good time to finally upgrade it, but I wearing out a DVD is not a thing, but I have that phrase in my head because wearing out a VHS very much was a thing.
Yes.
But yes, wearing out a DVD was not a thing, but if it was a thing, I would have worn a DVD out of this one. Because I watched it so much.
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch it a lot. I used to lend my copy to my sister so she could watch it a lot. When I still lived with my dad, two of us used to watch it every now and then, but my dad loved the movie. Yeah, my dad is someone who does not like science fiction, but he loved the original Star Trek and the original Star Trek movies simply because he loved Captain Kirk. And this was a film that my dad loved. My mom even, I remember my mom even liking this movie. Yeah, it was one that was really popular in the family.
So
although I think I was probably the biggest fan.
Oh, I'm sure. So let's take a walk through the characters here and kind of run down what's going on in the movie. Starting with Jason Nesmith, played by Tim Allen, so Tim Allen plays Jason Nesmith, who plays Commander Taggart. This gets confusing.
Quincy Taggart.
Yes, Commander Quincy Taggart. So we did a little bit of research on this last night after watching the movie, but I mean, he's doing Shatner, right? I mean,
He's gotta be.
The core of this character is sort of a loving parody of Shatner and a loving parody of Kirk. I mean, there's even Kirk things here that Chris Pine does jokingly in the reboot movies because they're so associated with Kirk. I bring it up that what else could he be doing? Because according to Tim Allen, he was doing Yul Brynner and not William Shatner. I have a hard time believing that. I have an even harder time seeing it. So,
yeah, you said that to me last night when you were reading it, and I can't. In a million years, I never would have guessed Yul Brynner while watching that movie. I simply do not see it. It is clearly William Shatner.
Yeah, I see you managed to get your shirt off, and does the rolling help? And then that's Kirk stuff.
Well, yeah, but that's the writing. But specific to Tim Allen's performance, I don't see any Yul Brynner in his performance.
No,
Yul Brynner just seems like a random name.
He sits in that command chair the way Shatner used to sit in that command chair.
Right.
He
does the thinking pose and all.
Right. He does the thinking pose and all that. Obviously, we have things like when he goes off on the kids at the convention, it's sort of the Shatner get a life thing.
Right, from the 1980s Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, so it's all there. It's all there that it's.
Well, again, that's kind of a bit more the writing.
No, I understand that, but
I'm assuming Tim Allen was joking because I hope to God Tim Allen was joking when he said it. He based it on Yul Brynner.
Now, here's the thing. Like, I don't dislike Tim Allen. I really liked Home Improvement. I used to be a huge sitcom guy, and Home Improvement was one of the last big sitcoms, really. Because that whole format, like, I know there's still sitcoms today, but that whole format as, like, what sitcoms used to be sort of died out at the end of the 90s. To me, it feels like most modern sitcoms are specifically, like, sitcom deconstructions or,
right,
over the top. Like every one of them is trying to do Married with Children, where it's not taken seriously at all. Yeah, I liked Tim Allen a lot on Home Improvement, and then he's made a lot of terrible movies.
He's done the occasional good one.
He has, but he's done a lot of terrible movies, and I can't help but think this is probably his best movie. And did he luck his way into this movie? Or did he just come to them with a Pitch Perfect Shatner impersonation, and they said, that's what we want?
Yeah, I have no idea how he was cast. If I was casting this movie, I don't know if I ever would have suggested or thought of Tim Allen. But the thing is, he's fine. He makes it work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We talked about this last night a little bit, that I didn't know this. Harold Ramis was originally supposed to direct this movie. And, like, I kind of want to see that movie now, just because Harold Ramis has directed so many movies that I find, to be, like, the epitome of what I love about comedy. I at one point, I think when Harold Ramis passed away, I said basically Mel Brooks and Harold Ramis are responsible for my sense of humor, But Harold Ramis actually left the movie because Tim Allen was cast. He originally wanted Alec Baldwin, which again would have been interesting. But it later ended up admitting that Allen did a really good job, and was surprised by it. But like his casting was so sort of slightly controversial that one of the greatest comedy directors ever left the movie over it. So he really, like, he's perfect in it. He's pitch perfect in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he's made a lot of terrible films slightly before and in the wake of this film. But he'll always have this because he pulls it off great.
Oh no, he is fantastic in this movie.
Moving on.
He even actually, sorry, but
no, go ahead.
He even actually gets some, early in the film gets a few really good dramatic moments.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of leads into, I've seen from Tim Allen and from the director that the movie was originally much darker. and before it was reworked after test screenings. I kind of feel like the scene where he's sort of drunkenly watching the show and trying to remember lines is a perfect example of like maybe the darker direction that they might have gone.
I kind of think that the idea of the suggestion that it was supposed to originally be a darker film is maybe a bit of an exaggeration. Because I've seen the movie so many times, and I realized that it was originally intended to be an R-rated film, but I can't imagine. There's nothing about it that really makes me think that it would have been like something much more grimmer.
Right.
Because just the look and the feel and the sets and all the other performances, everything about the movie really just makes it seem like it was just always meant to be fun and light and be a little kitschy.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, some dramatic moments, sure, but yeah, I think that really gets exaggerated.
Yeah, possibly. Like I said, moving on, we have Sigourney Weaver as Gwen DeMarco as Tawny Madison. All great names. All three of those names are great. So apparently the studio wanted what they called a sci-fi virgin. They wanted an attractive female actor who had never done anything sci-fi for this part. Nevertheless, Sigourney Weaver loved the script, so she auditioned and ended up getting it.
It's to the point where I cannot imagine any other actress playing this role.
Oh, neither can I.
I can actually say that for pretty much every role in this film.
No, yeah, because everything works so well. Yeah, man, we know how much I love Sigourney Weaver when we talked on our movie character episode about Ellen Ripley.
Oh yeah. I mean, Sigourney Weaver's been a favorite of mine since I was a kid. I have always said that Sigourney Weaver has never given a bad performance in any movie.
I don't think she has. Like, even when she has bit parts, she's not bad.
She's only ever given a bad performance in one movie that I know of. I can't think of the name of the movie at the moment, but it was the one she did in, was it 87 or so, where I think she was a prostitute, and it was just like really over the top. Other than that, everything else she's ever done has just been pitch perfect performance. And this character could not be any more different from Ellen Ripley. And it's the same actress. And I had to find myself fooled into forgetting that it's the same actress.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I completely buy into the character of Gwen DeMarco.
Yeah, I mean, she plays like a almost like a Lonnie Anderson type in this, you know?
Kinda, yeah.
You know, and it's just not what you think of Sigourney Weaver.
I remember
she does it.
I remember when this movie came out that reading a bit of an interview with Weaver, and she basically said that the reason she wanted to do the movie was that she always wanted to play a sex pot, and she did a great job. She's hilarious in this movie.
Well, I consider Ellen Ripley a sex pot, but that's just me.
Well, I'm not going to argue against that.
Yeah, there's also stories about how Tim Allen was a huge Alien fan and had a piece of the Nostromo that he wanted her to sign, and she signed it. Like something like Stolen by Tim Allen, Love Sigourney Weaver, which apparently made him very mad. And that she kept the blonde wig, and she said she can feel her IQ go down when she puts the wig on. So
she's so funny in this
movie. And okay, I mean the comparison that's always made is Deanna Troi, that she's kind of like she's a hot girl with no function on the ship except to be hot. I guess that's more. It's definitely more Deanna Troi than Uhura, because I always felt like, not that Uhura is not attractive, but she wasn't like the hot girl, and I think she has a very important role on the ship.
If anything, she was more like Yeoman Rand, whose job on the original Star Trek was to bring papers for Kirk to sign or coffee.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you know this, but I don't know if our listeners know this. You know, like the original plan for season 1 of Star Trek was the major plot arc was going to be Kirk deciding on whether he wanted to go off and marry Rand and be a family man, or if his life was the ship. That like Rand was supposed to be there to be in the love triangle between Kirk, the Enterprise, and Rand.
I've never heard about that.
Really?
Before.
You've never heard that? I've heard this in interviews before. Quite a bit, I would feel like.
I'm actually shocked. If this was a major thing, I'm shocked that I've never heard this before, because I've been a Star Trek fan since I was a kid, and this is news to me.
But she had Priestley Whitley had problems on set and whatnot that ended up having to leave the show. So, thank you.
I did not intend for that to happen.
Yeah, she was released during the filming of the first season. Yeah, I want to say it was on one of the special features on the Blu-ray set that I.
Yeah, I'm surprised. The thing is, the Gwen DeMarco character has a lot of parallels with other science fiction shows, maybe even more so. For example, Erin Gray as Colonel Wilma Deering in Buck Rogers. The original first season of Buck Rogers, she was basically the warrior chick. You know, she was a tough girl.
Mm-hmm.
But then they reimagined, for season 2, the show was reimagined to try to basically to turn it into a ripoff of the original Star Trek, because they put the ship traveling through an alternate dimension space for extended voyage into discovering the unknown with Buck as the captain, and they gave him a new Spock-like sidekick who was alien, and Wilma went from wearing the military jumpsuits to suddenly being in a stewardess outfit and walking around giving coffee and that to everyone. And she was a freaking colonel.
Yeah.
And she did nothing for that season. I was, God, when I watch those episodes, I get so depressed because she was so good in the first season, and they took it away. So I don't know. I think there's a large element of Erin Gray's character in the Tawny Madison character. Also, maybe even elements of Jerry Ryan.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan comes to mind as well, because did she have a function on that show but to be...
Well, the thing is, they gave her... The thing with Jerry Ryan is they actually gave her beady scripts. She actually got to act on that show.
Yeah, I guess. I kind of find her terrible, so... I mean, the thing with...
Whether you do or not, during the last 4 seasons of that show, the show was basically just the captain, the doctor, and Seven.
No, I completely agree with you.
It went from being an ensemble to just being those 3 and everyone else.
That's why I don't want that show. So.
Oh, yeah, no, that's basically around when I stopped watching that show. I stopped watching DS9 when it went from being an ensemble, basically like Gunsmoke in space, to suddenly being the Worf Show with Captain Benjamin Sisko.
But yeah, I mean, Deanna Troy's the one that everyone mentions, but like I feel like Troy on Next Gen, I feel like she was pointless and was just there to be good looking, and then Marina Sirtis basically took control and made her an interesting character.
Right. Well, the thing is, you're not gonna get a 100% character for character take on this.
You're not. Not at all. Not at all. You're right. But I mean, like I said, it's the one that everyone mentions when they mention her having a useless role on the ship.
I get that. But the thing is, Marina Sirtis turned that one-dimensional character into a fully dimensional character.
Right. Because, man, the whole idea of it's the 80s, we need a psychiatrist on the ship. Oh, it's like the most 80s thing about Next Gen.
Not the carpets?
Okay, yeah, you're right. We have Alan Rickman as Alexander Dane as what the heck's his actual character's name?
Dr. Lazarus.
Dr. Lazarus. Who is the Spock type, I suppose. He's the human actor playing the one main alien on the command crew.
Yeah, I would call Dr. Lazarus 75% Spock, 25% Worf.
See, I'd actually say that he's Spock and Bones put together.
Maybe a little bit of Bones, maybe a pinch of Bones, but the whole thing with the alien culture, and there's kind of the implication that his character is supposed to not just he's supposed to be alien intellectual like Spock, but from like a proud warrior culture.
Well, you got some of the things like the disgusting food and the spike bed and everything that is very much Worf Klingon things from Next Gen.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
No, I agree with that.
Also, the oath about avenging and the sons of Worven and all that. That's all like Worf type stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. But he's the captain's confidant and advisor, and really on the original Star Trek, both Bones and Spock were that role. Like the whole thing was like, I mean, this is another one that I've always heard, and we'll find out if Derek knows this one or not, since he didn't know the last one. That it's basically that Spock was Kirk's sort of intellect, while McCoy was his compassion. Like one was his intelligence and one was his morality, as far as like the two advisors on his shoulder type thing. Whereas Lazarus seems to be the two put together, serving both functions.
I've always heard that. I've also heard it as Kirk as the conscience, McCoy as the emotion, and Spock as pure logic or the intellect.
Yeah, I mean,
I've also heard it as the ego, the super ego, and the id.
I was about to say that. These are popular theories for Star Trek fans. So, okay, so it's Alan Rickman, so it's great. And I'll just talk about this part here. We talked about this last night. It's kind of brilliant casting, because besides the fact that it's Alan Rickman and he's great, like, they wanted a regular girl to play Gwen. They ended up getting Sigourney Weaver. But other than Sigourney Weaver, this movie is a ton of TV actors or people better known for TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this accomplished movie actor in Alan Rickman. So he kind of stands out as, like, he was supposed to be the Shakespearean guy who got stuck on the show, which is a little Patrick Stewart-ish because he was an experienced Shakespearean actor before joining Next Gen. But it's just brilliant. They really have the one guy who should be the real star, but he's playing this alien part, and then all these other people that are TV people, and they kind of cast a bunch of TV people, even though it's a big major movie. So yeah, kind of brilliant casting on there. Yeah, he's great as the he's the has-been, I guess, because Nesmith is more like he enjoys that he was Taggart, and he continues to live his life based around the fact that he was Taggart. Alexander he's an actor. He wants to go out and continue doing acting. He once was a great stage actor. Now he's stuck in this role forever, which of course also parodies Nimoy with Spock after Star Trek ended. So,
yeah, there's a couple of things about this character that kind of don't really measure up 100% if you're going for a complete comparison to the original Star Trek, because to a lot of people, maybe not all, but to a lot of people, Spock was the big draw for the original show.
Yeah, Spock was extremely popular.
And if he wasn't as popular as Kirk, he was almost as popular. Whereas we kind of get the impression in this that Lazarus is maybe more of a cult favorite and not necessarily was Spock level. Because Spock, in the real world, Spock was a cultural icon. There were stickers, there were slogans based around Spock back in the 60s and the 70s. He like graffiti and stuff. He transcended. It's really weird that this one TV show back in the 60s, even whenever it wasn't considered successful, transcended television and became such a cultural milestone.
Right.
This episode's in danger of becoming a Star Trek episode.
Well, this is a Star Trek movie, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. No, so that whole thing has always been a little bit off to me with Lazarus, because the idea being that we kind of get the idea that he wasn't that popular as like Spock.
Yeah, I mean, he was originally supposed to be a knight, and Rickman had them remove that because he thought it made him seem too successful. Like, Rickman wanted the idea that he was never he thought he was successful beyond the show, but he actually kind of wasn't, and that's why he's stuck doing what he's doing.
Yeah, if anyone's a character with depression or regret about the show, it's him.
Right.
It's so funny to me that it's Alan Rickman in this role.
Oh, it's amazing that it's Alan Rickman in this role, and it's amazing that the sequel series that's been discussed over the last few years has been basically held up because Alan Rickman passed away. It's like, of all the people, like, not that he's replaceable, but like, is he integral to this? He's the huge movie star who should have never been here. I mean, yeah, I know Sigourney is too, but yeah, it's just weird. Next we have Sam Rockwell, who I cannot mention Sam Rockwell without saying always a delight, as Guy Fleegman as crewman number 6. And this is the source of many red shirt jokes throughout the movie.
The thing about the casting about this movie is, as you said, you have two bona fide movie stars in Sigourney Weaver and Alan Rickman, although I would say Sigourney Weaver was definitely a movie star, and Alan Rickman was this really popular character actor in movies.
I would agree with that.
And as you said, everyone else was basically a television star. The one standout in this is Sam Rockwell, because this was a moment where I don't know if Rockwell ever really did much, if any, television. But he had been in a few movies a couple of years leading up to this. He had started to gain a little bit of acclaim. I think it was 97 that he was in Lawn Dogs, which I think was maybe the first movie I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, this is definitely early in his career.
And he got a lot of acclaim in that, but that was a very minor independent film. In fact, that movie, the two leads were Sam Rockwell and Misha Barton. This was long before, was it The O.C.?
Uh-huh.
She was, and she was like, I think she was like 10 or 12 in that movie. She was just a kid. And then the next year, he's in The Green Mile, and he's not one of the main characters, but he has this, like, almost comes very close to a star-making performance in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because he again had a heck of a lot of acclaim, where, he's the psychopath on the death row. And then this movie comes out, and I think this one really gave his career a really good boost.
This, as far as mainstream performance, this made him a star. I know he did a lot of indie film that were much more critically acclaimed, but this put him in the public eye.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, this was not a hit movie. This did okay, but it was kind of a bit of a disappointment. It was much more of a cult thing. But up until this point, he had mainly done drama and was basically building a reputation as this real powerful dramatic actor. And then all of a sudden he does this, where he is screaming and crying for his mother. And he gives this incredibly hilarious performance. And just showed this incredible amount of range in just these 2 years of movies.
Right. Because I think shortly after this, isn't he in... When is the first Charlie's Angels? It's got to be right after this, right?
I want to say 2000.
And he's
not 100% sure.
He's great in that, and he starts being in more things at that point,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so the whole joke is that he played a character who was a background character on the show who died early in an episode, which is what Star Trek usually refers to as the red shirts, because on the original series, crew and operations people were always in red shirts. Security and operations people were always in red shirts. So
can I make a little detour right there just for a second?
Sure.
I find this interesting. I was reading something sometime back. It said that the whole thing about the red shirts is earned because most of the people that died on the original Star Trek wore red shirts as operations officers, security officers, most of the extras.
Right.
But they actually, I don't have no idea who it was, but someone did crunch the numbers, and they found that statistically, you were much more likely to die if you were wearing a gold shirt.
That totally makes sense to me, because gold was command.
Right, and a higher percentage of gold-wearing characters died, whereas you would have a lot of numbers of red shirt characters die. but there were just so many more red shirt characters throughout all the episodes.
But the gold shirt characters that are dying all have names and backgrounds and are guest stars and whatever. Whereas the red shirts are the ones that are the nameless guys getting offed.
Right. Apparently, you would have been safest if you were wearing blue.
Apparently, and that carries over to next gen, where the red and the gold switch, and blue remains the same, and all the gold shirts start dying as the background characters.
Right. God, I love Star Trek.
But yeah, so he plays like the red shirt type. He's kind of a grown-up loser nerd in this. I mean, like, it's really easy to miss, but when Gwen and the rest of the crew are trying to find Laliar to get beamed up to the ship, they walk past him and he's talking to that girl at the electronics store. And if you have the subtitles on, or if you really, really listen, she says, "But you live with your mother."
Yeah, I never noticed that.
So, like, he's kind of the loser character, but then at the convention, he's like, "Oh yeah, I was in this episode, and I was on the show before, and I know these guys and everything." And he acts like a big shot,
Yeah, he's got the sunglasses and everything.
Right.
Oh gosh, no. Rockwell is so fun in this movie. He's quite possibly my favorite character. What's really funny is he's the one character in the show that actually has genre savvy, because he's the only one that consistently knows what's going on.
Oh yeah, he even says at one point, "Didn't you guys ever watch the show?"
But my favorite bit is whenever they're actually on the alien planet and they see the aliens, the little child-looking aliens.
Yeah.
And Gwen's about to go step out because she sees the one that's injured, and he grabs her and stops her and says, "Did you guys ever see the show? Those things are going to turn, into killers in any moment." And then the injured one ends up getting attacked and eaten by all the others, and they all freak out. And Weaver turns around and says, "We got to get out of here before those things kill Guy." That's one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah, it's like she gets into the genre convention at that point. Like, we're not in danger. He's in danger because he's the no-name guy.
I love this movie so much. Oh gosh, it's always watchable.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally is. Next we have Enrico. Is it Calentani?
I always forget how to pronounce it.
As Mathesar, who's the head Thermian.
Not just a TV star, but also Canadian.
Thank you. You have to give him a lot of credit in this, because my understanding is he came up with a lot of what went into all of the Thermians' performances.
Yeah, I mean, I even made the point. I believe I made the point to you last night while we were watching it in preparation for tonight that a large part of what he does in his performance is bizarre, but it's unusual and kind of brave choices that you wouldn't have expected.
Right.
He really makes the character unique. Basically, everyone else who's playing one of the Thermians is essentially doing a copy of what he was doing.
Right. Yeah, he very much set the pace for what they were going to do.
Oh my goodness, I just realized he's the Leonard Nimoy of Galaxy Quest.
Kind of.
The idea being that Leonard Nimoy essentially was instrumental in creating the Vulcan stuff,
mm-hmm.
and defining all the Vulcan traits and behaviors and attitudes and that. He's it for the Thermians.
Yeah, he really is. Even to the point where they said that they had trouble casting Laliar because it was like a lot of, like, for lack of a better word, just a bunch of hot girls trying to get into this movie. And they were like, we need someone that can do all this bizarre stuff that we've come up with for the Thermians, that is willing to do all that. And that's where Missy Pyle came in,
Oh, if anyone is game for being bizarre, it's Missy Pyle.
I love Missy Pyle so much.
Oh, God, no, she is a treasure. Haven't seen too much of her recently, but, man, she used to pop up in so many movies in bizarre costumes and makeups and that.
Yeah. She did a couple of different Tim Burton movies, which was just perfect for her. Yeah, I don't know what she's done recently, but
She is frightening in Dodgeball.
she was in Jumanji. That's right.
What, the new one?
Yeah, she was the coach at the school. So
I completely blanked on that.
she's barely in it.
Okay, that's probably why.
But yeah, I mean, like when you look at she was in Captain Fantastic too. I keep meaning to get around to seeing that. Yeah, and you get into like she was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Dodgeball, and Anchorman, and Big Fish, Josie and the Pussycats, which is right after this. God.
Oh my God, that girl's got a skunk on her head.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday we're doing a Josie and the Pussycats episode because that movie is super underrated and I love it.
I think I've seen that movie maybe once.
It is the smartest commentary on the music industry that I've ever seen in a movie. Better than Walk the Line, better than The Doors, better than any of those movies. They really break down the music industry for what it actually is in that movie, and it's so smart.
The only thing I'm worried about with that, us doing that film, is I do own it on DVD, but I might have it boxed up in one of my big bins in the back hall, which would be impossible to sort through. Well, it's what I might end up having to rebuy it just to do an episode.
Well, I unfortunately don't own it on DVD, so it'll have to wait until I ever get it. Because I've somehow managed to, every time, my brother has it, and every time I want to watch it, I just borrow it from him, and I've never gotten around to buying it.
That is shocking because I know how much you love that movie.
I know, I love the movie. I love the soundtrack. I listen to the soundtrack all the friggin' time. So, but that was our sidebar for the night. Back to Enrico. Yeah, he does everything that the Thermians, the way he talks, the way he laughs, the way he walks, the way he claps, like everything, they're following him. And this is a character that's very easy to mess up, like the level of earnestness. I mean, the Thermians altogether have a level of earnestness because they don't understand fiction and they don't understand, acting. But so they're very innocent. But he pulls it off.
He is such. It's an incredible balancing act between a character that is so naive, so childlike, and earnest, but also on the level very bizarre. And he still makes the character lovable. And one that you can really empathize with. It's a wonderful performance.
We also have Robin Sachs as Saris. He's sort of he does a lot of voice acting. He doesn't do a lot of real acting. He does a lot of voice acting, and he does a lot of...
Let's say physical acting.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
Voice acting is still acting.
No, I didn't mean it derisively. I love voice actors. I'm not saying but you don't see him like just as himself in shows. He does a lot of voice acting or like this type of like makeup character type things. He's the most generic thing in the movie, but that's good because he's generic Star Trek Klingon Romulan bad guy who is angry for some reason at the captain and just will go to any, he's equal parts General Chang, he's Khan, he's some of the Cardassians we've seen on DS9. He's just that type of...
You can say it. He's one-dimensional. He's
absolutely one-dimensional.
He's got no motivation other than he's evil and he wants to kill everyone. That's it.
My point is I wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
Because that's what this movie needed. That's what makes it more Star Trek, is the fact that that's what he is. He's a classic Star Trek bad guy.
Yeah, very much so. I love the design and the makeup and the outfits now for the aliens.
The aliens look great.
I have no idea what kind of budget this movie had, but it's certainly nothing compared to what the modern Star Trek movies are. But everything in this movie today, and this is a almost 20-year-old movie, and we're watching it on Blu-ray last night, and I think it still looks beautiful. I think it looks great.
Those little aliens on the planet are completely CG, and they look slightly off, but at this point I'd expect them to look completely terrible, and they don't. They really, really held up.
Yeah, it's Yeah, most of the special effects really look good. The spacescape stuff, the ship. Yeah, I always find it funny that uh, yeah, as I mentioned last night, that it's one of my favorite gags in the movie is that we have all this incredible special effects throughout this entire film, and then the film ends with them crashing, which was again an amazing effect, and then the practical effect of the ship coming through the building, and then our heroes, the actors, the cast, stepping out of the ship onto the stage for their introductions, and then Sarah's coming out after them, and Jason Nesmith shoots him with the actual alien gun, and the special effect of Sarah's vaporizing is the lamest.
It's like
which I'm assuming is on purpose. The lamest special effect in the entire.
It's like a little
movie.
popcorn. he just poofs out of existence. It's not like the Star Trek disruptors where the guys, you get melted down to their skeleton and the skeleton disappears or whatever. It's just poof and he's gone.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite gags in this movie. and of course, it's such a lame effect, the crowd thinks it's an act.
Right.
One thing that always kind of I mentioned it last night when we were watching it, is that every time I watch this movie, Sarah's the second in command, who the one alien that he normally talks to.
Yeah, his first officer or whatever.
Yeah, I always think the guy sounds like Rene Auberjonois.
Okay, so you said that last night.
Yeah.
And I hear it. I don't think it's him, but I totally get where you would get that out of it.
Yeah, I don't think it is him, but I can't help but always hear it.
Yeah, I meant to look up who actually played him last night, and I never got it.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm looking at the cast listing on IMDb, but I have no idea what the character's name is, so I don't know what to look for.
Yeah, other characters, I mean, we already talked about Missy Pyle as Leliar. You got Tony Shalhoub as Fred Kwan. He's supposed to be Asian, right? Like, that's the joke?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, yeah, as you said, there are so many television actors, and good ones, too. We got Daryl Mitchell.
Yeah.
I think this might have been the first thing I'd seen Justin Long in.
No, this is absolutely Justin Long's acting debut.
In fact, speaking of television stars, his mother's played by Heidi, is it Sweetberg?
Yes.
Who played Susan, George's ill-fated fiancée on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of familiar faces in this. Kevin McDonald is the guy who does the announcement at the at the end of the movie at the convention. McDonald being famous for Kids in the Hall, Canadian. I wonder, was this actually filmed in Canada?
I don't know. I did find the budget for you. You're not gonna believe this. The budget was $45 million. The movie's box office was less than $100 million.
$45 million. That's surprisingly low for a special effect heavy movie.
Yeah, I mean, even in '99.
And it looks good. It holds up, I think, very well.
Other than the rock planet being filmed in Goblin Valley State Park in Utah, it doesn't say anything about where it was filmed.
And that's probably just coincidental that they have a few Canadians in the cast. The main ones would be Kevin McDonald, Enrico. I can't attempt it. One of the other main Thermians, the teleporter guy, is Jed. I'm trying to remember his last name.
Jed Reeves?
Jed Reeves, yeah. I believe he's Canadian. I think there's a few other in the supporting cast. I can't help but point them out.
He does this even off the show, so.
I do. I really do.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna kind of talk about where this movie stands with Star Trek. All right, and we're back, and just want to wrap up by doing some quick association with the source material here. So obviously, this is not only it's heavily tied to Star Trek. We talked about a lot of the comparisons already. There's also, a Star Trek convention that gets parodied. A, a lot of people consider this like just straight up a Star Trek movie.
Oh yeah, in fact, I'm one of them. I jokingly still call this my favorite Star Trek movie.
Yeah, a lot of people non-jokingly call it their favorite Star Trek movie.
Oh, I get that completely. I do want to say one thing. There is no two ways about it. This is a Star Trek homage and parody. Also a love letter to Star Trek. But the thing is, a lot of the cliches and a lot of the character stuff, though, is just really parody and of so many of the different sci-fi tropes. It's not simply just Star Trek. A lot of the stuff in this really dovetails with a lot of other classic Star Trek or science fiction television shows. Just to continue with what I was saying about the character of Tawny Madison being in part Wilma Deering from Buck Rogers. You look at the Tommy Webber character. A lot of people took it as being a Wesley Crusher type character.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a really good percentage of that character is actually based on. I can't think of the character's name offhand, but the James Patrick Stewart character that from the original Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was the actual actor, James Patrick Stewart, was like, what, 12?
Right.
Playing the doctor who was the chief medical officer for Battlestar Galactica. I think a lot of the characters are playing with not just Star Trek conventions, but a lot of sci-fi conventions going across board.
Funny, I wasn't going to mention it a lot. I mean, you can find these quotes all over the place that a lot of Star Trek actors have made commentary on the movie. Most of them like loving the movie for what it is. Will Wheaton has apparently wanted. He lamented that he wasn't cast in the movie to be a fan who harassed Tommy Webber for being the stupid idea of having a kid on the ship.
Every time I hear about that, all I ever think is that Wheaton would have been good as one of the Thermians.
He would have.
But he easily could have done both.
At a 2013 Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, Galaxy Quest received enough support in a Star Trek film ranking to be included with the 12 Star Trek films that had been released at the time on a voting ballot. The fans at the convention ranked it the 7th best Star Trek film. To me, it's probably like 4th or 5th. Like, it's oh man, it's Wrath of Khan, it's First Contact, it's the reboot, it's Undiscovered Country, and it's this probably. Like off the top of my head, that's probably what it is.
The thing for me is, if you look at my flick chart, none of the Star Trek movies rank as high on my flick chart as Galaxy Quest. The closest is Star Trek the Motion Picture, which is, I think it's just in or just outside my top 100, whereas Galaxy Quest is roughly around my top 20.
Tim Allen won a Saturn Award for this.
He's really good.
He is. So beyond Star Trek, there's sort of like, how does this movie play with fandom? Because it is considered a loving parody. It is not considered to be like something that's very derisive of the source material.
Oh man,
it kind of makes a commentary on fandom, though, doesn't it?
It does, but it's kind of a sweet playing with fandom.
It is. I mean,
and
like,
it really, in the end, fans save the day.
Yeah, the fans save the TV heroes in the end, and the the sort of nerdy Star Trek geeks are like, there's sort of a underlying message here of it's okay to be that.
Yeah, the fans save the day with the power of their nerdiness because they know all the technical details.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
If you think about it, it would have been so easy to make a parody of Star Trek and just have insulted the fans and have everyone hate it. But this movie comes out, It does all right in the theaters. I mean, it's not like a blockbuster, but it does all right, and it just has so much love and affection for it, which is just incredible. I mean, they could have messed this up so easily.
Yeah, I'm gonna point to the Star Wars movie fanboys.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like everything Galaxy Quest got right, fanboys didn't get right, in my opinion. So like it's easy to do that, you know. It's easily messed up.
Yeah, this for some reason this was everything just clicking.
Right. And finally, like I wanted to mention that this fits into the sort of Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven structure of the, you know, the heroes coming to help the beleaguered town against the warlord type storyline, but also the Three Amigos type structure, which very much is the Seven Samurai structure.
Well, it's a variation.
It's the variation where the heroes are not really heroes. They're people portraying heroes that are mistaken for actual heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And this very much. I remember when it came out. I had I've not that I've not seen Three Amigos, but it's been a very long time. But I've never really been that big on that movie. But I remember a friend of mine said, "Oh, that movie was Three Amigos," and I was like, "Oh, I thought it was Seven Samurai," and it's like, "Well, we're both right," you know, because it was Magnificent Seven. But yeah, we were mentioning Bug's Life, and what was the other one?
My Name is Bruce. One.
Yeah.
And there was another, but I'm blanking on what it was. But yeah, they're all ones where the actor or actors are mistaken for heroes they play in movies or TV and get asked to fight some evil.
Right.
And they rise to the occasion.
Yep.
But not before we get a lot of hijinks.
Exactly. So, what is your final rating on this, Derek?
Okay, this it might seem excessive, but I honestly, I gotta give this a 5-star rating. This is a movie I genuinely love, and I mean I love this movie. Again, as said, it's consistently for almost 20 years been one of my top 20 favorite movies. I never get tired of watching this film. It still entertains me to this day.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't have Jenny Agutter.
I feel like I was my initial thought was 4, but no, it's there. It's a type of film like Flash Gordon, or you know, it's where it's just like it may be just this whatever film, but I love watching it so much, and I also feel like there's so much about the movie that we didn't talk about that, you know, that we're leaving on the table here, because it's for what it is extensively detailed and very deep.
It is. There are so many great dramatic moments. There's the stuff with Dane, Alan Rickman's character, and his name Quillick.
Quillick. The stuff between Dane and Quillick, I think is fantastic.
Heartbreaking, and there's so much actual, genuine, emotional moments in this film.
I mean, because you got the whole thing where the Dr. Lazarus's famous line from the show that Alexander Dane hates the line. Quillick is like the ultimate Lazarus fanboy when they get up on the ship and tries to say the line, and Dane gets very mad with him, and then Quillick gets killed and tells him, "We've never met, but I've always considered you like my father." And Dane starts doing the line, and Quillick's dying, and he looks so happy.
But the thing is, and you get this is such a tribute to Alan Rickman's abilities as an actor, because you can see that this is the one time that line has any actual meaning to it. And he says it with such gravitas.
He's doing it basically to comfort Quillick as he dies. You know, he's kind of giving him what he wants, but at the same time, he's also going to go out and avenge him. You know.
At the exact same time, this is the one time he actually means it.
Yeah, he believes it.
That is one of my favorite moments in this movie. This movie is just, I don't know, so easily jumps around from genre to genre because it's a comedy, it's a screwball comedy, it's a science fiction adventure, it's a science fiction action movie. It switches to drama at certain points, and it's just pitch perfect each time.
Yeah.
There is no reason to have ever expected this to work out the way it did, and it just does. I was genuinely surprised whenever I saw the run sheet that you had wrote 4 stars. I was like,
well, you know why? Because I rated it on Flickchart, and I just kind of looked at where it was at and what it was around, and I'm like, 4 seems about right. And I'm like, even the stuff that it's around, my first thought was to put 4 stars on, but there's still films that I love, and no, like based on our rating of 3 is it's okay, and 2 it's we like it, I'm sorry, 4 is we like it, and 5 is we love it. Yeah, it's got to be 5.
Yeah, I love this movie. I'll never say no to watching this movie.
So that is Derek and Matt Love Comics for the week. Send us email at derekandmattlovecomics@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Derek and Matt. On YouTube, we are Derek and Matt Love Comics. Find us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. Hey, I'm really starting to like to talk to you guys in the store about what you like about the show. But you know what? Send us an email. We'll read it here, and you can tell everyone what you think about the show. And beyond that, give us a rating. Give us a review on iTunes. We would love that. GalacticGregs.com and GalacticGregs.com. I'm sorry, GalacticGregs.com and Facebook.com/GalacticGregs for anything about Galactic Gregs. We've got the next Magic set pre-release coming up, the Return to Ravnica. We've got the Halloween stuff that I mentioned coming up. We got a lot going on for the fall. Derek, what are we doing next week?
Well, if we have the time, and unless we change the name and think of something better, we're doing Derek and Matt's Clash of Characters 1.
And what that's going to be is sort of a debate on who would win various character fights. So you might get this later in the week because I am out of town all weekend, but watch your feed because we're going to do sort of a draft of eligible characters to choose from as a bonus episode when we're done recording this episode. Music for this episode is Hero Theme and Adventure Meme by Kevin MacLeod. Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Derek, any last words?
By Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warven, you shall be avenged.
Never give up, never surrender. Damn the resonance cannons, full speed ahead.